Hey, it's Ron McLean. Welcome to Hockey Talk on the Rock.
With Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
All right, we're back again immediately. Episode number 74 of Hockey Talk on the Rock here on Saturday on Salt Spring. This is Laura, I'm Keith, and we're going to talk about the end of season stuff for the Canucks and talk about some of the matchups in the playoffs coming up and some maybe off-season stuff. I don't know. We'll see where we go. So the Canucks are done. They had a fantastic run to end the year.
They did. They had a very exciting second half of the season, really. And I mean, overall, I would say this is the most optimistic I've been at the end of a season for the Canucks in quite some time. I mean, even, I guess with the bubble playoffs, I was pretty optimistic about the team then. But in general, this is the most optimistic I've been with the team playing. I thought the last few games, it was really noticeable just how dominant Quinn Hughes was. And I feel like, obviously he's gotten a lot of love this season to some degree, but he won like the best defenseman on the Canucks award.
Third year in a row. He broke the single season points record, which I'm sure he's going to break multiple times in his career. But I just thought like even his defensive play rate this year has been so much more noticeable. And it's great to see. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the bounce back of PD and Demko's play and those kind of being the three key parts of the Canucks' future in general. But I just wanted to throw Quinn Hughes some love because I noticed, I think the last couple games that went to overtime, especially just like how good he's been. Yeah. His ability to walk the blue line is incredible.
Yeah.
Gotta give some love to Luke Shen. He got the Unsung Hero Award, and I love it. You know, I've had a soft spot for him since he went to the Flyers, even though they got gypped in that trade for JVR. And I'm just so happy that he's like revived his career since being in the A with Anaheim, and then coming to Vancouver, making a bit of a mark, going to Tampa, getting a couple cups, and now being so happy in Vancouver. Like he's back next year. Sounds like if they're willing to have him and he keeps it up to being a decent depth defenseman, like he sounds like he wants to be here for as long as he can. So. That's so awesome. It's just one of those feel-good hockey stories.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, I obviously when Shen was here the first time, I really liked his play. I thought, again, the fit with Hughes was really nice, and it was cool to see. And I was happy when he went to Tampa and he won. But I was actually kind of hesitant about him coming back because I thought that maybe it would be one of those things where he didn't live up to how he played before, and then it would be like he'd kind of be the whipping boy on the Canucks defense.
Right.
Whereas like the memory's kind of better. But he's lived up to it and more. He's been very solid depth defenseman for the Canucks, and I agree. I was very happy to see him get the Unsung Hero Award, and I'm happy he's going to be back for next year.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other person that we can say kind of in a similar light is Spencer Martin.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, because that's been another good feel-good story of the year. Him coming in when the Canucks had their COVID issues with their goalies and getting a win, getting them a couple points, and then coming back now with the injuries to the goalies, playing back-to-back games. Just looking like an NHL goalie.
Yeah.
And that's great to see. I hope that like the group of them that are going down to Abbotsford, I hope they all dominate in the AHL, but I hope they have a really good season of training and that they're ready to start next year, because if you can give Demko some more nights off, I think that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully Martin pans out, and he's obviously a cheap option for them as a backup, which is good for the Canucks right now.
Yeah, NHL wise, it's a small sample size for him, but he
true.
has looked really good, and like I was saying to you the other day, like, you know, really excited to see a full year of Martin Demko tandem, because that could work out really well for like, you know, $6 million in goaltending spending, you know?
Yeah, no, I think it's good. And I mean, overall, we'll see what the summer brings, right? I keep saying that. It's like the two jokes I feel like for this season have been like the next game's the Canucks' biggest game of the season for 3 months or whatever. And now it's okay, well, what are they actually going to do with this team? Because it's going to be our first chance to really get to see what the management actually thinks of the group.
They've given them a lot to think about.
They have, and I was kind of listening to 31 Thoughts, and what Friedman was saying is he thinks they're going to try and deal with Horvat first,
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a smart move when you consider both Miller and Besser, if you're looking at extending both of them, because I assume that Horvat's going to take, again, probably the most team-friendly deal.
Yeah.
And to both of them, you can kind of say, well, this is what Bo's taking and blah, 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 blah. So I think that's a smart move. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it also helps. I don't know how much it helps, but it could be beneficial to have kind of the internal cap that they do a little bit, with Petey being the top at 7.3, Hughes is at 6.7, and then Demko's at 5, and then Garland's at 5, so it kind of is like, this is our range, like obviously they're not going to get Miller for 7.3 or lower, but to be like, well, you can't exceed these by so much that it could be beneficial. Hopefully it plays out that way. It'd be nice.
Yeah, the other thing I just quickly want to throw out there too is I thought that Connor Garland's finish this season was also really nice to see.
Yeah, once he broke that 19-game goal slump or whatever, then it seemed like he got his groove back,
Yeah, and I still feel like with Garland, he's going to be one of those players that when the games really matter or on a really competitive team, it's just going to be a really nice piece that annoys the opposition and can score. Which the Canucks, had with Burrows and Kessler back in the day, but I just think it's a nice piece to have. But we'll see. Again, maybe they get blown away with an offer for Garland in the summer. I don't know. Anyway.
It just seems like with the cost certainty, it would be insane to move him.
And the age. I just don't get it.
So,
he put up 50 points this season, which is a career high for him, but nice to see. I did take a kind of quick look at the Canucks points to end the year, and goals specifically, and there is quite, again, I would say compared to really competitive teams or very deep teams, there's still really big disparity between the top and bottom, but I kind of think that internally they're gonna have that fixed.
Yeah,
Podkolzin is gonna put up more points next year.
He turned it around the last quarter of the season big time.
Yeah.
And I need to figure out how to watch AHL playoffs because with you said, with those guys, him and Martin and who's the other one going down?
I was gonna say Patan, but not Patan. There's Lockwood
Dries.
and Dries.
Yeah. Okay. So with all them going to a team that has been playing really well without them, I'm super excited to see how they do. And speaking of Podkolzin, his growth and development has led to I put it out on the Twitterverse that I feel like the two guaranteed moves I feel like the management are going to want to do are trade Tanner Pearson.
Yep.
Because I feel like they can fill that role internally.
Yep.
And then I feel like just because of the money, they're going to pay a bit to move Myers.
I could see it.
I mean, even though he was second top minutes guy or whatever, and he played better or whatever, it's the money thing I think that they need to do it, and I feel like they're convinced that.
Well, their defense still needs to get faster, right? I think that's the most noticeable thing.
And he takes a lot of penalties.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this about Mars. Sometimes I wonder if it's just because he's big, that he takes that many and is more noticeable kind of than other players on the ice.
Right.
But it is frustrating when, the Tyler Miners nickname gets thrown out there because he is consistently going to the box and kind of wrecking the flow of the game. I mean, the only other kind of defensive note I have with the Canucks right now is it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Rathbone.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It feels like they want him to fill that Myers void. And from every time I hear Ryan Johnson on the radio, he's talking about how his defensive zone and defensive awareness have come so far this year that it sounds promising. Because we all know he had that offensive promise already.
Yeah.
The future's bright looking. I don't know. If they can make it happen. Rutherford's not a dummy, I guess. He's got a bit of a reputation.
Yeah, and again, it'll be with the Eastern Conference, I've said this 5 times, but because there's so many teams in that, everyone that made the playoffs in that division is very good. They all have over 100 points. There's going to be teams that leave after the first round that are upset, and they're going to want to make desperate moves. And I think that the Canucks are actually kind of in a good position to feed off of that. So we'll see, but, obviously there's the connection to Pittsburgh, and it would be interesting to see if they go out and they want to keep the group together. I know they have unrestricted free agents coming up and stuff, but if you want to give Crosby another chance at a cup and stuff like that, so... be interesting to see. I'm super excited for the offseason, but I'm more excited about the playoffs right now. So.
Yeah. Do we want to quickly go to the playoff talk then?
Sure, let's do some playoffs and then maybe finish with retired players.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk awards too.
Yeah.
I mean, Detroit said they're not bringing back Jeff Blashill for next year.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
No,
Yeah.
I think they're ready to move on to a new coach. He's
Yeah.
had his opportunity as they've been rebuilding, and it hasn't really progressed that much.
No.
So we got that out of the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, playoffs. We did our bracket in the previous episode mini.
Yeah.
We'll just quickly talk the bracket, I guess. Like Florida, Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like everyone's in love with Florida, and did they end up finishing with the more than 4 goals per game average on the season? I can't remember.
I don't remember actually.
They were close, and if they did, I think they did.
Yeah.
They're the first team since 95-96 to finish with that much scoring, which is insane.
Yeah.
And Ekblad coming back.
Yeah.
Is going to be really good for them.
Yeah.
They're going to be super strong, and I feel bad for Washington, especially if Ovi's out.
Yeah, if Ovechkin's out, then I think the Caps have no chance. I already really don't think they have much of a chance. But I will say the only thing that worries me about Florida is just the style of playoffs. Like typically with the low scoring games,
It's less run and gun.
Which doesn't really suit Florida. But because the league has been so much more high scoring this year, I really wonder if the playoffs are going to be more high scoring.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's Washington's only chance, but at the same time, I'm like, well, Washington defensively, it's not like they're a juggernaut.
Yeah.
Like, I think Florida gets their first playoff win, since 98 or whatever.
Since 96, yeah.
96, yeah.
I can see it for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be willing to put a large sum of money on that.
If they don't, then, yeah.
and I mean, I'm gonna be watching. I don't feel like I need to watch it, but because Drew's there,
yeah.
I'm gonna be watching for sure. And then to a little bit, much lesser extent because of Jumbo Joe.
Yeah.
Love those two guys. So.
Yeah, again, I really like watching Florida play. I'm really hoping that there's a Battle of Florida in the second round because I really liked that series last year. But anyway,
moving on. Yeah, the one that I'm probably going to be watching with like the most like, oh my god, is this going to happen again? Is Toronto, Tampa, and I mean,
there's two ways of looking at it, right?
Tampa's played a lot of hockey.
Yeah, and also in some ways Toronto has less pressure. Like, in some ways they have more pressure, but in some ways they have less pressure because it's like, well, if we lose, we lose to the 2-time Stanley Cup champs.
Yeah.
Even though we have home ice and we're the higher seed, like, if we lose, no one's gonna, like, be completely surprised, and I feel like that's an advantage for them. And yeah, as you said, Tampa's played a lot of hockey. I still think they know how to turn it on. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think the two main things for me is like a lot of people are like, well, Tampa lost that critical third line, but like, man, you look at their third line now of Hagel and Colton and Nick Paul, and it's like, Nick Paul has 16 goals, and the other guys are both 20 plus. Like, their third line got replaced pretty quickly as Tampa just seems to do these last few years. And the other is like Vasilevsky's record in the playoffs, especially after a loss, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like it alone will go down in the history books. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. If it comes down to goaltending, it's not looking good for Toronto, but it feels like a bit of a coin flip series.
Yeah, I can see it going anyway. I took Tampa because I feel like they're going to do it, but would I be shocked if Toronto won this series? No.
Yeah.
Like, not at all. So, and it'll be really interesting to watch, like, Matthews, but to more of an extent Marner, particularly because he's had his struggles.
Of his slump, yeah.
And if he can break out of that slump, then I think Toronto probably advances. So we'll see.
Man, find out starting Monday. It's coming. It's coming. Carolina, Boston. I was happy to get Carolina, but then you reminded me that Anderson's hurt.
Yeah.
And like I've said before, probably in these episodes, that like I just don't have a lot of love for Carolina. Like I don't know. Like I know they won their division, but like I don't know. I just don't have a lot of belief in their team makeup or whatever it is.
I don't really think they've actually been playing that well of late, which also makes me think that, again, part of it's they don't have their starting goalie, and I know they, as you said, they won the William Jennings this year, so obviously they relied on very good goaltending. However, after I took, Boston in a sweep, what I'll say here is that Carolina does have a kind of tendency to make average goalies look really good with their defensive system. So
yeah, I mean, you could attribute the William Jennings to their defense almost, you know?
So it's possible with Ranta back there that they get a series win. I just think that for whatever reason, this is a series that Boston likes.
Yeah.
And as you said, your hot take, which didn't happen, was that Tampa was going to slip down and play Carolina. And again, I think that this division and then the Pacific are both kind of blah. Like, I'm not that
kind
excited.
Of wide open.
Yeah, I'm not really that excited. Like, I'm very excited about watching the Atlantic and the Central. Yeah. But these two, I'm kind of like.
Yeah. It feels like the East version of the Pacific, where it's like, like whatever.
Yeah.
On that goaltending note, I think in the next series, the Rangers-Penguins, the goaltending is going to be the talk of the town because Shesterkin's going to win the series for the Rangers if he plays the way he's been playing, and Jari's hurt.
Yeah.
So that's pretty big both ways. I know Pittsburgh's been playing good. Malkin, since he's been back to his injury, I saw his stats the other night. I was like, what? He actually got to 20 goals and 45 points.
Yeah, quietly good season for Malkin.
Yeah, and Letang too.
Letang had a really good year.
You never know.
I kind of weirdly think that Pittsburgh might actually beat the Rangers, even with the whole Jari thing. And it's only because...
I'd be totally happy.
It's only because I don't know... Shesterkin has played so well in the regular season, but... I don't know if he can possibly replicate how good he's been all year. If he can keep it at that level.
Yeah.
And then, Pittsburgh, they know how to win.
Yeah.
And the Rangers haven't been in this position for a while. I could see Pittsburgh winning. It's actually one of the ones that I picked on my bracket for kind of the not upset, but they are the third team there. Because I don't totally believe in the Rangers.
Yeah, that's fine. And we'll see if they're, beefing up their roster since last year. Does something. If
it does anything.
But he's a young goalie, and you got to wonder if a game gets away from them with Crosby and Malkin lighting him up or something. How much that gets into his head too.
Yeah.
Should be something.
Yeah.
So over the West.
Yeah.
I think no one's going to argue with us or whatever about Colorado taking out Nashville. It's only a matter of games, I think, especially with Saros out.
It's really too bad that Saros is out because I think it would be a lot more interesting with him.
Like we talked about before with Saros healthy in the playoffs last year, that he made that a series with Carolina and nobody thought that was going to be a series.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying they would beat Colorado if he was healthy, but
I think it would be more interesting.
Yeah, for sure, because Dave Rittich is Dave Rittich,
Yeah, I'm still so mad we didn't get Nashville Calgary because I would have really liked that storyline too.
Me too.
But anyway, it's okay. We're here. Here we are.
So Colorado, sure, we'll see it. The series that is probably gonna be the best. I think it tops Toronto, Tampa.
I agree.
For must-watch TV. Minnesota, St. Louis. They're built so similarly.
Yeah.
They both have the goaltending thing. Who's going to be the goalie?
Yeah.
They got good defense. They got depth.
Yeah.
The only real difference, I think, is St. Louis has better center depth.
Yeah.
But man, it's going to be good.
I don't know. I keep going back and forth in this one with being like, oh, I think St. Louis is going to do it. Oh, I think Minnesota's going to do it. I honestly don't know.
I think what caused me to pick Minnesota is I try to think who has the game breaker,
and that is Minnesota,
and that's Kaprizov.
Yeah.
St. Louis has so good players, but nobody's an authentic NHL game breaker.
Yeah.
Where Kaprizov is that guy, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll probably lean towards Minnesota, but I don't know. It's so tough. I'm really excited about that series. But from a fantasy perspective, it kind of does suck because if you're picking players from either one of those teams, it's is it going to work out?
I know. And it feels really weird, too, being a Canucks fan to, for the first time in my life, be, really rooting on Minnesota.
I know,
It feels so odd. And also to call them, an exciting team, too.
I know. It's weird. Yeah. What a weird world we live in right now.
It is totally odd. Into the Pacific.
Yeah.
I think everyone hates Dallas because they're Dallas sucks. Why did they make the playoffs? And I think anybody's going to pick Calgary over Dallas. You never know. Stranger things happen.
Yeah. The only thing I can say, again, kind of in line with the Toronto series here with Calgary, is that, Johnny Gaudreau's obviously had an amazing season. but he needs to show up in the playoffs because that's the story of his career so far, is that he hasn't had very good success in the playoffs. And so that's the only thing that I think, like, Calgary is built for the playoffs. I'm really scared about Calgary this year as a Canucks fan. I don't want to see them do well, but they scare me.
And like we were talking about before this episode, they kind of have an easy path to the Final Four.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at Dallas, Edmonton, and LA, like, Calgary is the standout team.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if you look at almost every position, I mean, defense, they don't really have like an absolute stud, but like goaltending, they have Markstrom, and then just their forward depth is so deep. And yeah. I
mean, Markstrom has not played in the playoffs very much.
That's true. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, they can also, the other thing I'll say about Calgary that I like is, they can run and gun, they can put up a lot of points, but I also feel like they can shut it down and kind of squeak out those 1-goal wins.
Yeah.
So I like that. I don't give Dallas really any shot in this series either. I think, unlike in the East, in the West, to me, there are two teams that aren't very good in the playoffs, and they're Dallas and LA.
Yeah.
And I mean, because of Saros, I chuck Nashville in there too. So yeah, it just is what it is. But you know, they got in. They got into the second wild card, the first wild card.
Dallas got the first wild card because of the collapse from Nashville against Arizona.
And the other thing about that Dallas win, just really quickly, for getting the first wild card, is partially because Anaheim had to put in that e-bug.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so anyway, it's just crazy, but...
The series I'd like to talk about the least
I agree.
Edmonton, LA. Like, I don't like Edmonton, and I'm disappointed LA made the playoffs, because I don't think either of these teams are particularly well, and you look at the way they're built, it's like, okay, well, someone's going to make it to the second round, because they have to.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, you know, I go back and forth with this one, too, and I don't know. I really don't know. I agree with you. One of these teams is making the second round, which sucks because one of Minnesota and St. Louis are not making the second round, basically, if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe in Edmonton's depth at all, and I don't really believe in Mike Smith either, but I also, like, who has LA really even got in terms of, like, point producers?
Oh, I mean, Kopitar had an okay year, but he got most points in October, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Deneau was surprisingly productive.
Yeah. The positive thing I will say is, by them being here, Vegas is not in.
That's true.
And that is the best part.
Like, if it was Edmonton, Vegas, that would be worse. Like, for me personally, I'm like, okay, I can kind of cheer for LA.
Like, I would not watch for any of that. Not a moment.
Yeah, I agree.
So...
Anyway,
Vegas is out, and that's the best.
Beautiful, yeah.
It's so good.
It was funny, like, there were tweets about it that was like, I've never, you know, I've covered the NHL for 20 years or whatever, and I've never seen so much universal hate towards one team. I'm like, this is amazing.
It's the best.
Yeah.
And, like, they had a pictogram or whatever recently of, like, players from the 2015 draft and their playoff games.
Yeah.
And, like, McDavid's, like, really low with, like, 14,
like,
and then Eichel's none, and Eichel's still none, and that's so good. Oh, it's so good. They'll learn. They gotta treat their players better. They can't just shop out everybody else just for the shiny new toy and try to, you know.
It's totally true. And, you know, you think about the position this, like, Vegas could have been in if they just hadn't traded for Pacioretty, so they still had Nick Suzuki. And, you know...
Kept Fleury.
Like, those two things, even if you did everything else, I feel like they'd be a way better team.
Way better.
And I will give one shout out to the Logan Thompson kid, because I think he played really well, and I feel a bit sorry for him, because to me, he was in a terrible situation, but if he hadn't played like he played, then...
They would have been out a long time ago. So here's my question for you. What's more likely? DeBoer keeps his job.
No, DeBoer's getting fired.
They trade Leonard and they go with Thompson next year to save the money? Or they fire DeBoer and bring back Leonard?
They're firing DeBoer.
You think so?
I don't think they can bring him back. Not with the comments that he made towards the end of the season there, with it being like, oh, I'm just dealing with who's here. And, like, to me, he knew, like, he kind of knew he was gone at that point if you're making those comments. And I think he's probably one of the least liked coaches in the NHL. I think he's ran his course, and they're going to get rid of him.
Short length there. Short leash in Vegas, because Gallant didn't last very long either.
Well, that's part of the reason why so many people are mad at Vegas still, right? Is how they treated Gallant. But, yeah, they're a weird team. I was not jumping on their bandwagon when they made their their run in 2018. But they've steadily, I think, got less likable, and I'm happy to see them miss and get a little bit of humility, as you say, and maybe like one of the interesting things is that their first that they traded to Buffalo, right, for Eichel, that is top 10 protected. So if they did win the lottery and jump up the 10 spots they can,
they'll get a draft pick.
They'll get their draft pick, and that will be interesting to see because they don't have anyone coming in. Right?
Yeah, I mean, their highest draft pick they ever made was Cody Glass, and he wasn't working out. They traded him for Nolan Patrick recently, and that is not going to be
hasn't worked
anything.
out. Yeah. So anyway, it's been they're going to be another team to watch in the off season.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think they're going to do knee-jerk things. And I think they're going to be a team that, like, if Pittsburgh can't re-sign any of their three big guys, I feel like they're going to be the team that finds a way to, like, throw all the money at whoever it is.
Yeah.
How? I don't know.
I still think they might go out and get a goalie.
I was going to say, I could see a world where they trade Leonard and fire DeBoer.
Yeah. And who knows about like Leonard, the whole thing with his injury at the end of the semester, the end of the season was so random, right? Like, who knows how healthy he really is? That's the other thing about him.
It sounds like it's like shoulder and leg now.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like he was being held together by hockey tape.
Yeah. So I kind of think they get a new goalie, but yeah, we'll see.
Will be interesting.
Yeah.
Award talk. Let's quickly do some award talk before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
I want to start with the Norris.
Yeah.
I want to give all the love to my dude, Roman Josi.
Yeah.
Besides the crazy point total he put up, like, where would Nashville be without him? I mean, Saros too, but I feel like Yosi's going to get it this year despite Cale Makar's 29 goals.
29 goals, yeah, which is ridiculous too. I agree. I think it should be Josi.
So it would be Josi, Makar, and
whoever you want to put in.
Probably
third.
Hedman.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Hedman's if it's based on like defense alone, I think Hedman's Hedmonton. Hedman's the best defenseman in the world.
I agree.
But offense plays a lot of the voting.
Yeah. And we've talked about it a lot, and they really should get another award for defenseman. I really think it's needed down.
I think he got ripped off last year.
Yeah,
I think Fox was the new shiny new toy or whatever, and I don't think he should have got it.
Well, also consider where he plays.
Yeah.
With the media, so
yeah,
I agree. I didn't like that pick last year.
Vezina, I mean, another quick one. I think everyone's going to give all the first place votes to Shesterkin.
Yeah, Shesterkin should get it.
And pardon me. Who would they throw in there with him? Maybe a Vasilevsky?
Vasilevsky will be in there for sure.
Saros based on his workload?
I could see Saros or maybe Markstrom.
Oh, yeah.
With the 8 shutouts or however many you got to in the end.
Yeah.
Just give him a little bit of love. One of those two.
Yep, I can see that.
Yeah.
Hart Trophy seems to be a heated debate. Here in Canada, it seems like people have basically said it's going to be McDavid or Matthews, but it should be Matthews.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so hard because when, like we've talked about before, the definition, the most valuable to your team. I think there's less of an argument to me for Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
Because he's got the whole line. Like, that whole line, that whole team is really good.
It's just his points at even strength. That's the thing that does it for me with Gaudreau, that I'm like, but yeah, I think honestly, I think Kaprizov should be in there.
Yeah, because where would Minnesota be without him? Like, that's the thing.
I think if it was me, I'd probably do some combination of Kaprizov, Gaudreau, and
Matthews.
Yeah.
But McDavid will be in there.
He has to be, right? Like, at this point he has to be, but I think people are kind of just bored with the fact that he's so good at putting up points, and it's like, okay, whatever.
And like, this year's tough. Like Huberdeau too.
Yeah, Huberdeau is another one that,
like Josi. Like, there's,
I don't think Josi will get in just because of being the defenseman, and they'll be like, oh, they already have their award. It's the same thing with the goalies, right?
Same thing with Shesterkin. I don't think he'll get in because he's gonna get the Vezina.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But I agree. I think it's it's a weird trophy because it usually just goes to the best player. Yeah. But the fact that Matthews has 60 means he's probably gonna get it. Yeah.
We can talk 2 seconds about the Selkie Trophy because it sounds like Bergeron's going to get it.
Yeah, it sounds like Bergeron in a landslide.
Yeah.
And like the other Calgary player, it's Lindholm that I think he'll be in there for the Selkie, and I don't know who the third will be. Barkov?
Yeah, maybe Barkov. I mean, I heard there was a lot of love for, like, Eriksson Ek.
Yeah, in Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. And then the final one we'll talk about, I guess. I mean, we can speculate on the Ted Lindsay, but I mean, based on the players voting on the players.
Yeah, it's going to be Matthews, I think.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they'll respect the 60 goals over McDavid, but I could see it being McDavid too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I haven't looked at the penalty minutes, so I can't even really speculate on the Lady Bing.
Let's not do that.
No.
What about Coach of the Year? Because that is a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. Like you said, there's so many teams that finish, like, especially in the East, they're all over 100 points.
Yeah.
Midway through the year, I think most people, you and I even probably agree that, like, Mike Sullivan was in there.
Yep.
Sheldon Keefe maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know Brunette, but like it's just such a good team. Like, I don't know.
I think Brunette will go in because they won the President's Trophy, and usually the coach that wins the President's Trophy is in the final three.
Yeah.
So I'll say them, and I would look at two teams that overperformed for what they were expected. I think Edmonton's coach, that Woodcroft or whatever his name is, I think he might get some love because their record is way better since he took over.
Yeah. I can see it being down to Brunette, Sutter.
Yeah, Sutter I can see too.
And I can even see Evison in Minnesota.
Yeah, I was going to say him as well.
So, we'll see.
We'll see.
Time will tell. They're going to announce these mid-playoffs sometime, right?
Yes. I believe so.
Okay. Well, time will tell, as always.
Yeah,
Time remains undefeated.
Yeah, and in that note, there's a couple players, one player for sure that announced his retirement mid-Canucks game or pre-Canucks game.
Oh yeah, Dustin Brown,
who, I was surprised he got such a warm welcome at Rogers Arena.
Yeah, and like the team all shook his hand too, which was really odd. Yeah. And I saw the comment after, it was like, what are we doing? Are we going to all line up and shake Duncan Keith's hand too after he retires? Like, yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, obviously, like when Tanner Pearson hugged him, I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like, they played together in LA, blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Dustin Brown. He obviously had a pretty good career, and it'll be interesting to see if this is kind of a rally call for the Kings in the playoffs, and maybe they go out and play extra hard for Dustin Brown. But I kind of think the more interesting one is like the Carey Price situation, because he talked yesterday, and the way he was talking to me kind of sounded like he's not going to play again.
Well, especially since he said that his knee is still swelling up after every game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's going for a second opinion on that knee.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's going to be pretty heavy if he's done. So, we'll see.
Could be the end of an era.
Yeah.
Back to Brown quickly.
Okay, sorry.
Super classy that Kopitar gave him the C for that last game.
I thought that was really nice, too.
Yeah, that was really classy. Because he was the captain for the 2 cup wins.
Yeah.
And then, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, they swapped it over to Kopitar. But that was a classy move.
Yeah, that was nice. Good on Kopitar for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, I feel like we talked about a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember most of it, but we talked. Anything more?
No, I think that's everything. We'll be back after probably the first week of playoff action or something like that.
Yeah, we'll have some good playoff hockey to talk about. And I'm sure, some teams that didn't make the playoffs, similar to Detroit, will make some moves for the management of their team moving forward. And I hope by then, by the next time we talk, we have some news about Boudreau and his extension. Yeah,
I think it sounds like it's positive now. So I think we will.
What do you think? 2-year extension plus the next year?
Yeah, I think so.
It makes sense.
He's 67, right?
Yeah,
so it's
take him till 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we can talk about that next time. So, here we go. We did our back-to-back double feature Hockey Talk on the Rock. This was episode number 74. Thank you for listening. This is Laura, and I'm Keith.
Woo!